Human rights lawyer and theologian Professor Barney Pityana says that South Africa is running the risk of being controlled by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Pityana says instability in municipalities, corruption and allegations of money laundering are some of the concerns that the country needs to deal with. Prof Barney Pityana joins us now for more on his opinion piece. Prof, thank you very much for your time on this Human Rights Day. Where does your concern stem from? What are you seeing that is causing alarm?
Thank you very much. There is a real reason for concern about the well-being of the body politic in South Africa at the moment. And what it means is that there's a collapse of governance and there's a collapse of our democratic systems, and that people no longer have any trust in the law, and so much else about the country is really collapsing. I draw attention at my South African Human Rights lecture to the fact that far too many cities, for a country whose population is really not that much, at 60 million people, too many cities and towns, really you walk in, you see signs of nothing but dilapidation in certain sections of our towns and cities. You see nothing but brokenness. Sewage running in the streets, no water provision, harm and violence of the most bitter and terrible types actually obtained. And clearly these are places that are outside of the reckoning of our local government and municipalities, where there is total, complete lawlessness. And that seems to me that is if ever there was need, a sign of a collapse of our democracy. In other words, the hopes that we had in 1993, 1994 are not being realized. The second thing I say is that we've had the African National Congress in governance consistently since 1994. But as we are now nearly 30 years later, this was the subject of my speech, we seem to have regressed in our provision to the people, notwithstanding our constitution, which promises so much. And the theme of my address was that without a strong and stable governance at national and local level, the requirements and the expectations of our constitution and the Bill of Rights can never be realized.
Prof, you speak of South Africa regressing. President Cyril Ramaphosa just a few moments ago, he's in the R in the Northwest, and he was telling residents there and ordinary South Africans that almost 30 million South Africans are in receipt of one grant or another, boasting that South Africa is the only country on the continent that makes sure they ensure the rights of the people through the provision of these social grants one way or another. Is that something to be proud of?
Many people, many able-bodied people whom you see in these places on the edges of our cities don't want handouts. They don't want to be treated like non-beings, non-people. They want to work. They want to be productive. They want to be creative. They want to live with their families and their loved ones. They want safety. They want freedom. They want economic stability and ability. It is good that there must be a safety net in our country. But in reality, in our country, we cannot boast that 30 million of our people are receiving a part of the safety net, because sooner or later, that net is simply going to break through and it will not be able to hold the fish. So really, at the end of the day, that safety net is precarious. It's getting to becoming very precarious. Sooner or later, the state is not going to be able to hold people safely under that safety net. It's going to break through at any moment. So if I were the president, that is the last thing I would boast about. I would say that those who are in definite and dire need, yes, will get assistance. But in fact, we should be getting less, not more people within the safety net system.
Absolutely. Yesterday, a number of South Africans under the economic freedom fighters took to the streets to call for an end to load shedding, to call for young people who are able-bodied that you speak of to have a decent quality of life, to be given employment and not just depend on the state. That march, there was so much fear and anticipation of it, and so many predictions of violence, the country descending into chaos, and so much was said that the message that was being carried ran the risk of being lost. What have you made of the events of the past few days and the joining of many South Africans and taking to the streets, wanting indeed for their basic human rights to be provided?
My basic starting point has been clear in this conversation just now, that in order to provide for and defend the rights of the people of our country, we need a state that is capable of governing. And we need a security system that is capable of protecting the rights of people. The president himself mentioned that we cannot rejoice when people allegedly, from whatever intelligence he has, have been forced into marching against their will. The fact of the matter is that it should never, ever have been necessary for people to take to the streets in order to demand basic things like water, like electricity, like food to eat, like work, like streets, like a proper sewage system. Now, those are basic things that give the people of this country the quality of life. I applaud because my thesis is that you can never provide and defend for the rights of people as a government unless you are prepared to govern. And my thesis has been, by and large in South Africa, our government has been invisible where it matters most. It doesn't necessarily provide adequately for healthcare, not adequately for education, not adequately in terms of the roads where people, not adequately for food, not adequately for agriculture to meet the needs of our people. So as a result, this is a self-help society. People provide their own protection and social security. People go to private hospitals or private schools. South Africans are learning the art of being independent of the state. And the state, even though many of us pay taxes, but actually the state does not provide half as much as what it is required to do.
You are concerned also about the monies that the country owes to the likes of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, and going cap in hand asking for money. Why?
Exactly. We have gone out to get money if I'm not mistaken, at this point, we owe, that in a manner that we've never done before since 1994, over $1 trillion is being owed to the IMF and other lenders to our country, to the point that the servicing of this loan on our budget every year is increasing all the time. The important thing to remember is that what do we need these for? We've needed these in order to provide for social security, as the president has said. We've needed these in order to provide for salaries and stuff like that for the dwindling number of people who are working and that continue to earn more. We have not provided these in order to provide jobs, in order to industrialize the country, in order to ensure agricultural and other production, in order to promote the capacity of the state to build its economy. So at the moment we are providing these huge amounts of money and we're getting very little back in return.
Professor Barney Pityana, thank you so much, sir, for your time this afternoon.